Well, The Athletic canvassed 10 different writers in 10 different cities and said, throw a proposal out. They collected them. So I want to start with what they propose for the Lions.
Okay.
But then I want to go through the other 9 teams and ask you, who do you not want him to go to? Right?
Yes.
Because if he's not playing here, he's going to be a problem if he ends up in a certain place. So we'll start with the Lions. And Colton Pouncey is the athletic writer for Detroit, and he put this proposal together. The Cleveland Browns would get the 28th pick in this year's draft, a third-round pick, a 2026 first-round pick, and quarterback Hendon Hooker. The Lions would get Myles Garrett and a 2026 fourth-round pick in return. Yes or yes on this deal?
Oh, yes. Okay. It's easy. And, I mean, the Hendon Hooker, like, okay, do you want him? We'll throw him in.
Sure.
I don't know. The only way, and I mentioned this yesterday, that Hendon Hooker is at all a part of this trade. And I know, we've had people call in and say, throw him in like it's going to be something good for the Browns. If they simply want to go into next year and tank from the beginning, or see what they would possibly have, and maybe they find a diamond in the rough, maybe they find some, magic, but most likely not. And then they will be picking very high again in 26 to try and find their quarterback, because it's not in this year's draft, I don't believe.
And they could use their second-round pick if they don't love any quarterback on a foundational piece, offense or defense, around that guy. Pouncey says, I'll preface this by saying it would be a true departure from the roster-building strategy we've seen in Detroit under Lions general manager Brad Holmes. He's been adamant about sticking to the process, which is focusing on building through the draft, adding free agents where it makes sense, and extending homegrown talent. He highlights all the deals they've recently done and the deals they still have to do, and says, however, Garrett is on the short list of players who you could make an exception for and justify it. He's a Hall of Fame talent, still in his prime, looking to win. The get-in price is probably 2 firsts, considering the bidding war that would unfold. In the scenario, the Lions would part ways with 2 first-rounders, a third-round pick that they got from Aaron Glenn being hired, and Hendon Hooker. Yes or yes? I think everybody would say yes. I know there are some detractors out there, and we can open up the phone lines if you have an issue with it. But this is the freight. You're getting, I like how he wrote that, a Hall of Fame talent. This is a guy who has 100 sacks before hitting the age of 30. Only 2 other players have ever done it. One of them's Reggie White. Like, we're talking about adding Reggie White to this defense. And we got people going, well, but the cap space in 2027.
Right.
What are we talking about?
That baffles me. The question is, and we won't know until if a deal is done, because the odds-on favorite to have Myles Garrett services is still the Cleveland Browns. They don't have to trade him. Now, how dirty or how bad or messy this divorce would get, I don't know. How set on being somewhere else is Myles Garrett? Is he willing to sit out? I mean, who knows? Or is it just a matter of do they extend him and throw him a whole bunch of money and he says, okay, well, the money is better than actually competing for a Super Bowl?
But I think they have to be honest, Cleveland. Okay, there are situations, one of the worst in football, because of Deshaun Watson's contract. They have a lot of dead weight financially, and they don't get any production out of the position. They are not competing for anything next season.
Right.
Myles Garrett will then only have 1 year left on his deal. He will be in his 30s. You need to start over. This is a chance to create a true market and get something to reset and restart the franchise, knowing next year is probably going to be a throwaway season.
It's very similar, and it just kind of hit me, to the same conversations we were having before the Tigers trade deadline with Skubal last year. 2 years left of team control after last season. Do you want to try and maximize the opportunity to win with him, or do you have to completely reset and gain as many prospects or draft picks, it's different in baseball, but prospects as possible? Now it's a matter of a team that absolutely needs to reset. It can happen a lot quicker in football, but what is the one piece that you have as most valuable that eventually could be a free agent and could walk by himself? That is Myles Garrett, and you're going to get the maximum amount of return from anybody else that you have on the roster.
And I would point out, with that comparison, the Tigers had the edge in that there is no cap.
Right.
And in the case of the Browns, there is a cap and there are cap constraints with Deshaun Watson. It's going to be a lot harder for them to wiggle out of it. I don't think they're going to go on a Tigers miracle run.
No.
So I think they have to strongly consider trading Myles Garrett. They should trade him at this point. Here are some destinations, John. Okay, this is just in alphabetical order from The Athletic. Make note of any that you would go, I don't really want him to end up there. The first one, Atlanta.
Whatever.
They propose a couple first-round picks, get it done.
So a minor concern, simply because you could face them at some point in the postseason.
Could be a playoff opponent. The Bills.
Again, minor concern.
Super Bowl opponent.
You will play them next year, and you could have to face them, obviously, as you said, in the Super Bowl.
The Chicago Bears.
Twice a year, okay, the concern level starts to go up even more.
Their proposal is the Bears would offer 10, 41, and a future first-round pick to get Myles Garrett back. The Lions, who we've talked about. The Green Bay Packers. Level of concern, that's a playoff team that you will play twice and maybe 3 times.
So
starts
anytime,
to ramp up a little bit here.
You have to play against them, especially twice in the division. And the one thing that I'm not concerned about is I don't have the same feeling as some do. It's probably less now than before this past season, is I don't think Jordan Love and their offense is ever going to be good enough to be a threat.
The Indianapolis Colts,
AFC team,
whatever, and not even a Super Bowl contender. That would be, if it's not the Lions, sure, send them to Indy. The Chargers, it's a playoff team. This trade proposal has them sending Joey Bosa a first and a third to get Myles Garrett. So it's an upgrade for them, but I wouldn't be overly upset if you went there.
Not really.
Okay. New England Patriots, next. Yeah. The 49ers.
This one would upset me. And it might upset me even more than if he went in division. Now, if are the Vikings on that list?
Vikings aren't. The last team is the Commanders.
That would upset me the most. And maybe it's recency bias because we just lost to him, but Jaden Daniels is going to be somebody that the Lions are going to have to deal with for the foreseeable future. You put him on that defensive line along with Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen. Now, they underperformed this year, and we talked about that going into that game.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to underperform. They're going to be made even better with a running mate like Myles Garrett. So I that one would probably concern me more than anything, because in division, like I said, I'm not that concerned if he goes to the Packers, because I don't think Jordan Love is ever going to make that an offense that you really have to be concerned about. The Bears, more concerned than the Packers, TBD on what Ben Johnson can do as a head coach. San Francisco and the Commanders, to me, if you are having to face them on a regular basis in the playoffs, and a regular basis, more concerned about Washington because of the young quarterback.
Yeah.
A lot of obstacles in the way for San Francisco moving forward. Now, they do have some cap space this year, but decisions to make with their quarterback.
But that's what would make me upset about San Francisco is they have bigger cap problems than Detroit, but they're going to pair Nick Bosa up with Myles Garrett, and we can't do it with Aiden Hutchinson. They care more about chasing the Super Bowl than we do. Yeah, that would make me really mad. The Washington thing is frustrating because it feels like they're just starting with a rookie quarterback, and they were just in the NFC title, and they're taking this more seriously than Brad Holmes. Like, these are the things that would get me. They could be direct competitors in an NFC championship game. They are willing to put chips into the center of the table, and Brad Holmes is going to be stuck fishing lint out of his pockets. Like, that drives me crazy. Yeah. I think this ticket texter puts it well. This is for Brad Holmes. What's the point of having a mind if you never change it? You can change your mind.
Deep.
It's a deep,
very deep
philosophical. Yes. Pass that along to Brad.